So we now can remove our lower plank, right, our lower dummy plank, because we're actually going to be putting our plank just in here like so. Now if you remember, we don't need to look at the instructions. We know by just looking at how these planks are going that, where does this start now? That it's going to go dirt, dirt, and then this one basically needs to be on this row here. So this is going to need to be there like so. We don't have to worry about that because I'm going to like not even bother sort of with that end yet. I want to sort of concentrate on this end. So what we need to do, we know that this is going to go finish here, right? So let's just do our usual. Let's make a mark at where our bends are. Right, so we sort of know where to bend our plank and get it sort of nicely bending round here first. So we've got our bend nicely going round here now. What we need to do is sort of mark where this is going to start now. I did like a 2 planks width just here and nailed that in, but you want to try and get it as accurate as possible, right? So as much as we can get 2 planks in there, I feel it really starting to have a bit of tension here. Right, so it does feel like the exact as possible point is around about here. So I'm just marking that there. Right, then I'm putting my piece just in position. Right, and then what we want to do, right, where we're nice and happy, which is about here, we want to transfer this mark to our piece like so. And then what we need to do is measure out what is 2.5 mil with a ruler on the other end. So it's basically going to be dead center, right? And then we want to basically draw a line, right, from one end to the other. So we've got our line drawn, as you can see just here, which you know, it doesn't actually hurt to actually press down your plank and sort of almost make it nice and flat again for this stage. I mean, we can always bend it back. I mean, as long as you're not bending too much that it, you know, actually goes. For this, I don't mind actually getting out a blade after doing my line. Don't mind getting a blade and just sort of cutting off most of it, right? I mean, I'm basically sort of leaving a nice bit, you know, I'm not going right up to the line, right? So just cut that off just to get most of it gone, because there's no point like trying to sand all this off, because that's just going to take you ages. You know, now we can sort of sand it. Now we've got most of it off and get it right up to that line, getting it nice and straight as possible. And then you want to do all your usual, you know, chamfering and stuff and making sure that's all good, right? And then you just want to be test fitting and just constantly, you know, give it a sand, a trim, chamfer, you know, test fit, maybe a bit of bending. You know, if it's still not, I mean, this has dried out a bit now, so maybe I've got my water down there, just put it in the water for maybe 10 minutes, you know, keeping it pliable and everything. And it's just a case of just constantly doing that until we've got a good fit. So I'm now happy with the shape of this. So we now want to sort of put this in position. We've got our little mark just here, right? And I'm looking at this and it's going in rather nicely. And hopefully you'll sort of see how it just gradually gets smaller and smaller. So at this point, right, we've got our 2.5 mil at the end here, and then we've got a gap of 2.5 mil for our second plank. Right, but what we need to do now is with this in position, right, we want to mark this where we need to have this plank end. So I've just marked it here, and just like we've done before, we're just going to cut this with a saw, right, and then we can just nail this in and glue it all in, and that will be our first plank. So we've got our first plank just in there, as you can see, and I have just gone off and sort of put another plank going all the way down here. That's really sort of nice and simple. We want to now put in another plank. Now, as you can see, all we've got to do is copy what we've just done here, exactly the same thing, same process, right? We're just going to get it to nicely fit into that gap. The only thing is we've got to remember that we've got to follow the pattern, which the pattern has gone there, then it's gone back, and then it goes up one, and then it goes up one here. So it's here where we want our next plank to end, which I have already gone off and done. So as you can see, it's just nicely fitting in there. So we wrap this around, get our pencil, and where did we want that to be? We want it to be on here, so we just mark that in the center, right, and then that's where we want to cut it, and we'll have our 2 planks nicely in there, and it's just a case of glue, nail them in, and move along with the next bit. So what we need to do now is just get rid of this little bit that's just on the end, because our little dropper plank, it's going to go nicely here, so we need to sort of cut this to, you know, just get it all nice and flushing onto our bulkhead here. Now, you don't want to be cutting directly with our bulkhead, you just want to be getting it at a proper right angle with the actual plank. So we're talking about cutting this around about here, so we're just going to keep cutting with our blade, right, until we get this nice and cut off. I've actually let this dry, so it has gone hard, all the glue and stuff, so it's going to be a bit tricky, but it would have been easier if I would have done this straight away while it was still wet. So now coming in with our top plank here, we don't do the actual dropper plank just yet. We want to get this one into place first. And hopefully what you'll see, well, what you should see, is that when we actually place our plank here and hold it both ends, that our gap now is like under the 2.5 mil that we're after. So it's around about it looks about 1 mil ish. So you might want to get out a, you know, some sort of ruler or something, measure that, and then we want to go through the same process that we would do if we didn't have to put in a dropper plank, which is basically getting out a pencil, right, well actually sorry, we had to go back a step. What we've got to do is we need to put this on here like so, right, and then where our gap is the biggest, which I'm looking at this, you probably can't see it properly on camera, but it's about here. This is where the gap is most, right, and it was about a 1 mil gap, right, so we're going to get our ruler here and measure a 1 mil gap. Sorry if you're not on camera. Nice 1 mil gap just there, right, and then all we need to do then is bring our 1 mil gap at the front to where we made our mark, where we know the gap is at its most, right, and we can just draw a line from one point to the other, and all we need to do then is sort of cut that down, and that should be, you know, at the right sort of size to then place this on here as you normally would.